They lootin'. I made you look. You a slave to a page in the rhyme book. You know the song, y'all know the song, Nasir Jones. Tonight, on Waking the Giant, we're going to discuss looting. Welcome to Waking the Giant, looting. Seems like it's the hottest new topic on the street right now. You can't have a protest without a corporate media analyst who's quick enough to run and say looting and rioting.
Looters, the rioters, and the arsons.
Violent mobs, arsonists, looters, criminals, rioters, rioting and looting, destruction and arson, riots and lawlessness.
Even the cash register smashers.
Just think about it. That's what they're calling protesters. Looters and rioters. Well, let's look into the definition. Let's take the legal definition of looting. Valuables pillaged during a time of war. To take goods by force or through lawless behavior. Let's take that last definition. We can take both. And let's think about what looting really is. Corporate media is referring to someone running into a store and taking goods and appliances, TVs, sneakers, a washing machine. I seen one brother with a washing machine. But let's get down to the real deal when it comes to looting. 1981, Ronald Reagan decides to put an end to the New Deal era. And what does he do? He crushes labor unions and gives the top corporate tax rate the major cut you've ever seen before. We're talking about prior to this, from the time of FDR up until about Lyndon B. Johnson, the corporate tax rate was about 91%. It changed during Lyndon B. Johnson to about 78%. When Reagan slides into office, it drops down to 50% and then turns to 20%. Before that, that 91% to 78% corporate tax rate used to fund 1/3 of the federal government's budget. In other words, it's what kept the wheel turning. 1981, Ronald Reagan slashes it with this trick called trickle-down economics. Slashes the top corporate tax rate, steals all of the money from the federal government. Guess who has to replace the money now? That's right, me and you. That's looting. That's called looting, brothers and sisters. 1983, Ronald Reagan decides to not enforce the Sherman Anti-Trust Act. Antitrust, just so we're all clear on this, we're not going to use ambiguous terms. Antitrust means we're not going to allow the rich, what's legislation created so they won't allow the rich guy to own everything. JP Morgan can't own the steel mill. JP Morgan can't own Walmart. JP Morgan can't own your transportation and communication centers and the bank. It's laws that are created so that we can influence competition, considering that we live in a democracy, a capitalist democracy. Okay, Ronald Reagan decides, nah, let them own everything. By not enforcing the Sherman Anti-Trust Act, that's called looting, stealing. Let's move on. George W. Bush. Well, before we get to George W. Bush, let's take the stop at Bill Clinton. NAFTA, I'm sure you're all familiar with it. The North Atlantic Free Trade Agreement slashes 700,000 jobs on the spot. And I don't know if y'all are aware of this, but manufacturing jobs during that time were paying people upwards to about $35 an hour. It would allow a person to own a home, have a car, send their children to college. You know, the American dream. As soon as NAFTA comes in, now other countries, other third world countries are now on the same playing field with America, and so are the wages. Wages drop tremendously. All of a sudden, here we are 20 years later, 30 years later, begging for $15 an hour. Think about it. That's looting. Boom. Some more looting. Let's look at George W. Bush. George W. Bush in 2005 decides to cut Medicare, decides to cut a certain portion of Medicare and transfer it or convey it to private companies so they could create their own private health insurance for us. It's called Medicare Advantage. Go ask your mother and father about it. They'll tell you all about it. How could he do that? We pay that out of our taxes. He just took the money and gave it to some private companies? Looting. And that also left Medicare in shambles. That's the reason Medicare is in the situation that it's in right now. Not only did he do that, but he endorsed legislation to defund the post office by $5 billion a year for 10 years. It was nothing more than a setup so that the post office could be sold in a fire sale to FedEx for $1. I used to work for the post office. I can tell you right now that the post office was being held up for the last couple of years by Amazon, a $6 billion contract, because the federal government would no longer provide money for them. That's looting. Barack Obama, soon as he steps in office, what does he do? He bails out the banks. We all know this. This is. I'm not making this up. This is a story that you've all heard, you've lived through, you've got to see it. He bails out the banks to the tune of $600 billion. Looting, because who pays for that? The taxpayer. Now, it was a $900 billion bill. Well, what did he do with the other $300 billion? He extended the Bush-era tax cuts. Now, what that is, during George W. Bush's time, he created the largest tax cut for the wealthiest people in America. Barack Obama extended it to the tune of $300 billion of our money. That's looting. Now, let's move to Trump. The 2017 Tax Cut Act. What are we talking about here? A $2 trillion tax cut for the wealthy. Supposedly, the money's supposed to trickle down and provide you with a job. But what happened? It overwhelmingly went to these corporations, and these corporations did this thing called stock buybacks, where they bought all of their stocks. All of that money is now muddled somewhere in the stock market and never made it back to Main Street. That's looting. Lastly, as of recently, the CARES Act. Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell get together. They can't get together on anything else, but Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell get together. Mitch McConnell won't even look at one of the 500 bills that Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats have sent to his desk. But somehow Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell come to a great agreement to give corporations, undeserving corporations, trillions of dollars, and give you a $1,200 check to keep your mouth shut. Slap you in the face. That's looting. So the next time somebody discusses looting, make sure that you could discuss it in these terms. Make sure that you could apply these sort of definitions to looting. Please understand that when a person goes in a store and they run in and they're robbing it for sneakers and TVs and things of this nature, you got to compare the $80 sneakers to the $8 trillion of looting that took place. Which one weighs out to more? Which one are you more concerned about? Not to mention, I know I'm the skeptic, but let's be honest, I'm pretty sure that a couple of those places that were looted during the protests were probably set up by their own company for insurance proceeds. With that being said, I'd like to welcome you to Waking the Giant once again. I'm your humble host and servant, Nat Turner. Be sure to like and subscribe to our page. And remember that we are the voice for the voiceless, and we are your platform. Peace and love.